Well, hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Hansen. I'm the CEO and founder of Reduce 2. We say saving the planet by degree. And we function in the events industry to help the events industry become more sustainable, whether that means getting certified to ISO standards or the Events Industry Council or Net Zero Carbon Events Initiative. And very pleased to have three people with me today that I highly respect, and I do consider them to be the next generation of leaders in our industry. But by way of introduction, Bridget Schweitzer from Maritz, and Bridget's joining us today to talk really from the perspective of a director of environmental strategy at Maritz. And full disclosure, Reduce 2 and Maritz work hand in glove, so to speak, in providing carbon footprint measurements to some of the clients that Maritz serves. So when they hold a corporate event or an exhibition, and they'd like to know their scope 3 emissions and recommendations for reductions. That's how I was first introduced to Bridget. And like I say, full disclosure, we work together closely in that regard. Also with us today is Christina Domino Philpot. She's from Visit Anaheim, and I first met her at Exhibitor Live when she was with Skyline. And we had a wonderful chat back then about all things sustainable and what was happening in the industry. And so we're delighted to have Christina join us today as part of our conversation. And Oxana Chenko, she's a senior event coordinator for the Council on International Education Exchange. And so as I did this, you might have now picked out that I tried to bring in the different elements of the events industry, both from a planning perspective, from an association perspective that actually organizes and holds and sponsors and so on, but also with Visit Anaheim. So we'd have a perspective, as I say, from different elements of the events industry to talk about sustainability under the guise of this next generation of leadership. And what is it that this generation sees happening in the events industry and how things are changing and how they yet sometimes remain the same. And so the first question that we spoke about, Bridget, was really about changing demographics of the trade show industry. And a lot obviously happened post COVID. We got through COVID and now post COVID things are coming back, but are they coming back in the same way or are we seeing some changing demographics? In particular, some focus on climate consciousness. And how do you see climate consciousness, particularly in your position at Maritz? How do you see that affecting events going forward?
I think when you think about the younger generation, the younger demographic, especially where I see here at Merit, so we have on-site travel directors, we have event managers. Now that they've got over like that hump of getting back to normal post-COVID kind of work leveling out, I would say there was so much work and there was not enough people. And so we're kind of getting back to that. Okay, now we can innovate and move forward. I see so many people just in our organization who really care about sustainability, really asking a lot of questions. We have our sourcing teams who have clients asking them. So I do think this younger generation that's coming into higher roles in organizations are pushing for thinking differently, thinking we don't need to waste so much at events. It's not more is better anymore. I just think that people are thinking through the whole process, and it's shifted a lot than how it used to be when I was in the planning role, I don't know, 6 years ago. And I don't think we ever really talked about it pre-COVID. Then post-COVID, we are seeing this huge shift. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the younger generation holding this as a value and pushing for suppliers that hold similar values to them and to their organization. So
Hmm. And Christina, out in California and Visit Anaheim, how do you see that?
I'm certainly echoing what Bridget has shared. I would say post-COVID, and especially now, just coming into 2025, seeing the robustness of our industry and basically having the time to put into more meaningful events gives us the flexibility to think about other initiatives such as sustainability. I think, as Bridget said, just coming out of it, it was just go get it done. But even post-COVID, I think I've been more aware of it, that just seeing sustainability is out there, it's available both in education and in solutions for events. I do see hope in that getting better.
Yeah. Oksana?
Yeah, I definitely agree with both Bridget and Christina. To Bridget's point, I also see in my organization that there are a lot of people who are interested in sustainability, hold it as their value. They really connect with it on a personal level. And it's not just it, I see it across all different ages, not just the younger generation, but definitely see a lot of that with younger people and people my age, but also other ages as well. And I think that's a really good resource that organizations can tap into, because until we ask who is interested in sustainability, we wouldn't know. It doesn't come up that easily. But
Hmm.
I think that sustainability is no longer a trend, it's here to stay, and we will see more of it.
Yeah, and what you just said there is so true in that if we don't ask, A, we won't receive, but B, if we don't ask, we might not be told what is actually going on and sometimes behind the scenes. I mean, everybody I talk to in the events industry, when you say sustainability, there's like, oh, yeah, we're sustainable. We don't use plastic water bottles anymore. And as if that was it. And it's like, no, there's so much more going on from a trend perspective, booth design, carpeting. Yes, food and beverage being more vegan and vegetarian and yeah, still having beef and chicken, but offering more of the alternatives, and maybe in some cases skipping beef and a chicken in one particular meal just to go with a vegan or a vegetarian offering to see how people experience that. And in the times I've been involved, I was quite pleased with how well it tasted. And I didn't really miss the fact that at that particular meal, there wasn't beef when in the event there, I knew that there would be, but at that time there wasn't. So
Yeah,
Lynn,
and oh,
go
sorry, I was
ahead.
just gonna kind of add on to that when you said asking people and getting, I feel like we're seeing people feeling very empowered when you kind of give them, you open up the doors and you're like, find some creative solutions. We don't have to do it this way. We've done it. And people who maybe don't have to focus on sustainability want to, and are like, oh, we have all these creative ideas that we've kind of just had in the back of our mind, things we see on site. And now that we're kind of saying, put those into practice, do it, or give surface those ideas, you see so many people being engaged. And it isn't just younger generations, you're right, it's older generations as well. I think it was just the push has come more from some of the
Right.
younger people who are on set and are like, why do we still print out the agendas? Nobody uses them. They want them on their phone anyway. So, but yeah, I see that interest across the board as well.
I agree. And to add to that, I know some of my colleagues who got interested in sustainability and learned more about different sustainable concepts from younger generations in their family, maybe their daughter or their son who brought that to their attention. And then they decided to like go for it because they saw the value in it.
Oh,
Mhm.
very nice. So trends, I think Bridget, you touched on one there. Like we could talk about swag and the giveaways, tchotchkes as we would also call them. And I see that there's a trend away from things that nobody's going to use anyway to things that they can use, or if they're not going to use it, that it can be repurposed and donated back into the community. And I've seen really great case studies where the community has benefited greatly by people just thinking a little bit about, oh, if we're going to do this at the event, what's the life cycle of this? Is it likely to be used? And shouldn't we be a little bit more creative? So let's talk then some trends. And Christina at Visit Anaheim, is it a trend now that Visit Anaheim and other DMCs around the country by default now include a sustainability offering in their materials? Or is it still, do you wait to be asked? So where's the trend? Wait to be asked, or we're all being proactive now and saying, here, this is an option for you?
I think it depends on the destination, but I would say the majority are definitely looking at it from a DMO standpoint because that's what our clients are paying attention to. They're coming in asking those questions for the solution. So, and on the exhibit floor, there's a lot. Being a destination, we want to immerse them in an experience as if they're in the destination. So, the trade show floors at IMAX and IPW, they're getting more interactive with activations and and a lot of the give backs as well. So you can paint a square or we had even a letter board where you could write a letter and then you put it into the charity that you wanted to donate to. And so that destination matched donation for that charity. So things like this that are more give back, not necessarily swag, where we're giving them something that, as you mentioned, they may not use. And if we do give them something, to really be mindful of it and thoughtful about what it is we're giving them. It's gotten more fun in the process of just being more meaningful, but also sustainable and memorable.
Hmm. And Bridget, on the trend side, I mean, you and I, as I disclosed up front, because we work together on these carbon footprint calculations, we can say that we are seeing a trend towards people who did not know 3, 4 years ago, totally not only knowing now, but now making decisions based on some forethought, like site selection. When we started this, people were already committed 2 or 3 years out in terms of their site. But now that 2 or 3 years have gone by and they've had the benefit of seeing these trends in sustainability, it's causing them to rethink site selection. And would you agree? And what are you seeing?
No, I absolutely. I think the awareness of what goes into the emissions of an event from kind of our perspective, that data is changing the way people think. Like, oh, well, I thought this destination maybe was more sustainable because of X, Y, and Z, but maybe I should be looking at these other factors that are actually playing a bigger part into our total emissions. So for example, like distance traveled from attendees, like obviously they control a lot on site, but if they shifted the location to be closer to where those attendees were, that reduces the emissions from the actual flights. And sometimes they don't have, sometimes they're just thinking about what matters on site. But I would say there's that aha moment of, okay, what are our goals of the event? And what are our goals around sustainability? And how can we match those best? And what location can meet the needs of both of those goals? So I think it's definitely kind of making its way as one of those factors of where they decide rate, state, space, sustainability.
Right. And we talked a bit about the younger professionals. So let's talk about the older professionals. Talk about me. I can remember when I took my first course, if you will, in sustainability. It was probably 2009, I think. And there were maybe about 6 or 8 of us, and it was not about events. It was about CSR, corporate social responsibility. And it was a 2-day class. And at the end of it, they had to go around the room and everyone had to tell them how they felt about what they learned. And when they came to me, I said to them, as a CEO of a company, I consider myself now frustratingly informed. And the guy looked at me and he said, frustratingly informed, what's that? And I said, well, I'm very frustrated by everything that you've shown me because I didn't think of it first. And somebody's now going to tell me that as a CEO, I should have been doing this all along, and I haven't. So I'm frustrated by that. And I'm also frustrated by some of the case studies they showed where the downside of greenwashing and getting things wrong in terms of being public about what you claim to be doing, but maybe you really aren't doing. And so I was then informed as to what sustainability was, and it didn't mean sustaining my business. It meant being a business of sustainability. And at the same time, as I said, I was frustrated. So this younger generation within each of your respective organizations, I'd like each of you to talk about this. What are you seeing? What's the trend? I mean, is the C-suite or the older generation, if they're the one and the same, I'm not sure, but are the older folk asking or leading, or are they informed, or you're informing them? What's the trend there? Whoever wants to jump in, please.
I can start. So I see that from within my organization specifically, there is a lot of pressure to be more sustainable from business partners, but there is also, as a leading educational organization, I guess there is a little bit of pressure to be sustainable as well. So I can see our C-suite taking the lead and coming up with strategies with different planning for sustainability. So I definitely see that. There is also local enthusiasm from people like myself, where I don't necessarily need to go through different approval stages to implement some sustainability initiatives with the events that I organize. So I guess from my perspective, it's both. And it's very nice to see that for me specifically, that there is a lot of interest in sustainability and a lot of creative ideas coming from all levels of organization.
Yeah. Christina?
Yeah, we're calling this our golden decade. We're kind of coming into a really pivotal time of Visit Anaheim. So we hired, when I was a year ago, 40 people, now almost 70. So we've almost doubled in size. There's a lot more voices, all great things, and sustainability is one of them. When it comes to exhibiting, we have a new booth that we're producing this year that we mean to hang on to for at least the next 3 years, maybe 4, maybe longer. But the intent was to get something that we are renting majority. We have digital assets more than physical assets, and trying to think of that carbon footprint as well as only purchasing the custom items. So that was one thought. The other thing we're doing, we created what we're calling our program of experiences. We have about 93 events that we're planning this year so far, and we've looked at it holistically so that we can look at all of our different departments. And when we're going for in-market events, yes, partnerships doing an event. If tourism needed to do business in that particular location, let's try and create an event that involves everybody and we pull in clients. So that's been really great just to look at everything. So all of our team can look at that calendar and say, I actually need to go there and see such and such clients. And we're already seeing that synergy. I think that's only going to steamroll as we get going here, and events that were maybe somebody was just going to travel for 12 has now become an event of 28, and we're servicing more clients and getting that cross promotion from the different departments. So a few things, but more is coming. So it's an exciting time.
Yep. And Bridget?
I think we're similar to Oksana, what you said. Our leadership is bought in. It's a strategic priority. Our organization is quite large. I mean, we have 2,500 people. So we have the direction from leadership to say this is a priority. We have kind of task forces to start educating, because it's hard for people to assist clients without feeling like they really know what they're talking about. So we really have kind of an internal campaign to spread the word, help educate, make people feel confident talking to clients, maybe servicing things for our clients, even if they don't ask. Because oftentimes do what your clients want as a planner and consult with them. But if you can consult with them on also sustainability, sustainable options, and educate them, it will drive more awareness. It will drive the industry forward. So there's a lot. And then our on-site staff, that's kind of that younger generation. So the travel directors, they're all in. They hate seeing the waste. They hate seeing the food waste. So they are trying to figure out how can we help even when we're just on site, even when we're not planning. So as an organization, I think we care. I think we care about educating those around us, the industry, our clients. And so it's just, I think like you said, Christina, it takes time. We're seeing that snowball starting to get bigger. We're seeing people grab onto it and want to help. So it's fun to kind of see that progress over the last year or so. So
Yeah, and I in business and in life, I've always seen things as sort of as a pendulum, and it moves from left to right, and at some point it comes back into the center. And I can see that in the trends in sustainability, that we've had to push for so long now that the pendulum has swung out, and now it's swinging back a little bit, and it's going to normalize in the middle where this is just business. This is the way it's done. And it's no longer seen as you're far out on the left or far out on the right of the pendulum swing, but it's becoming more centralized. I mean, yes, I still find people who are new to the notion, but I'm finding that they're anxious to learn. Oksana?
Thank you. I just wanted to agree with you and Bridget on the trends and how it is becoming normalized, sustainability in events industry. What I have seen is that sustainable initiatives can be so innovative and so creative that one event or one company does it and it becomes a worldwide trend. And then if you want to have a cool event, you must have something like this. For example, I was a volunteer at the TEDx London a couple of years ago, and they had like a quiet room where you were not allowed to talk. You would go in to just wind down. And I think it was such a great idea for anyone who can become a little bit overwhelmed. But what I've seen is that trends like this, they spark interest with other companies who want to do something on top of what they're already doing. And I think this is how sustainable trends and sustainability moves further, like digs its root further in. And the other one that I thought about was that once they become a norm and you attend an event and it's not there, for example, disposable items or plastic bottles, I don't expect to see that at an event that I attend. So if I attended now a different event and suddenly, oh, the water is served in plastic bottles, I would think, why are you doing this in 2025? Come on.
Right.
So that's how I see the trend being in the events industry.
Yeah, now I'd like to talk about the supply chain that each of you interact with, because I am seeing, because of either state or federal regulation or industry body standards like net zero or the Events Industry Council or what EDPA and ESCA have done in terms of guidance on sustainability, I'm seeing people who are not touched by regulation yet, meaning their size of employees aren't there or their revenue isn't there in a particular state, so they're not mandated to comply with that state's requirement, but their clients are. And their clients now are pushing down through the supply chain and saying, where are you on this issue of sustainability? And so that I do see that it has the attention of people who in the past may have just simply ignored regulation because it didn't apply to them based on size or revenue, but in fact, it does apply to them as they're part of a supply chain. So as each of you in your respective businesses think about procurement and supply chain, if you'd speak to that, do you kind of agree with that point, or are you seeing that is a trend, that there is now some push down into the supply chain? So once those companies got their heads around what they needed to do themselves, and now they realize they have to rely on their supply chain to help them. Now it's, I mean, in my business, I'm getting calls almost every week or day now with people saying, I've just been asked about this. I need to know more. Tell me. Christina?
Yeah, I think, well, the biggest hurdle that I continue to see is in the food. When we're renting venues, using sites, there's just such strict regulations on not being able to gift that food anywhere. We have great resources in Orange County and LA that will come and take the food and take it to communities, but it's the venue that has strict regulations to say we can't let that go after, typically it's 2 hours amount of time of being set out, which I understand both sides, but that's definitely one that's tricky. So then it comes down to what you can do, and you work with the venue on how much we're putting out, if we're changing our options to make more sense so that we're producing and reducing less waste, reducing the waste.
Mhm.
And so I would say that's the biggest, but it's certainly a conversation. And on the exhibit floor too, we're seeing a lot more solutions, which means clients are asking, and that's great. So I like seeing that direction.
Cool. Bridget?
Yeah, so I mean, our organization is a supplier to a lot of clients, like you mentioned, who must adhere to regulation. So that push down as a third party does go to us, and it makes us think about our suppliers as an organization. We do see clients think about it from the lens of their events too, because those are their suppliers. So we're seeing that push down, like you said, on the exhibit floor. What are they doing? So it is trickling its way to the industry. And I think we're seeing that through questions through sourcing. What can you do? And what is your knowledge about this? How can you help us? And then how they plan. Sometimes we have clients that sometimes say like, we're just not going to do it this way. Even though you didn't give us another option, you need to find a different option. Like, we won't do signage this way. We're not going to throw away all of the structures for the exhibit. So I think that from what you were saying originally, Glenn, yes, we're feeling that. I think our clients are feeling that. And I think it is kind of going down to events and pushing to source those and procure suppliers that are doing it more sustainably. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I.
No, that's fine. Oksana, anything to contribute there?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I am typically the one who is pushing down sustainability or at least asking and nudging people in the supply chain about sustainability. It is very rare to come across partners like you, Bridget, that would do some things sustainably proactively without us asking for it directly. So I definitely work with different venues and catering to make sure that they have some sustainability practices, something that we kind of have as our event team has standards within our organization. So we want the vendors that we work with and partners to adhere to those standards as well. Since a lot of conferences that I organize happen in different location every year across the world, we are not going back to the same location. So we have experience like working with different countries, different regulations, and that's where it's difficult because every single time for every conference you have to start from zero. You have to find the venue, the caterers, all the partners brand new. So it's kind of like a process that you have to keep doing, but that's where you get better at it because then with what type of people you would like to work and what are your standards that you want to keep taking with you wherever you go. Yeah.
Very neat. All right, so I got two questions to close out with, and one is about, okay, we're the next generation of leadership, and bearing that in mind, if you had the opportunity tomorrow where your job changed and now you were in the C-suite, what would one thing be that you'd like to see different in sustainability for the long term? In other words, what would foster more sustainability? And then as a closing question, I think our audience would like to know, in sort of like a case study, but give us just one example of something that you thought was just spectacular with respect to sustainability. Like 2 or 3 years ago, we would have said somebody came up with the idea to remove plastic water bottles. Okay, fine. But there are other innovative things that are going on these days. And so if we could just name one, I think that would also help our audience understand that there are some really cool things that can be done other than just eliminating plastic water bottles. So our first question, tomorrow you're in the C-suite, you're Chief Sustainability Officer, a CSO, and what would you like to see change to foster sustainability in the longer term? Bridget?
Put me on the spot here. So I think it starts with education, right? I think sustainability, everyone's like, whoa, this is so big, I can't do it. And it's so I think we have mandatory education around pretty much everything else, code of conduct, all these other things. And eventually, like you said, that pendulum will swing and everyone should be educated. So if I could snap my fingers, I wish everyone just knew what those of us who kind of live it and breathe it all the time, because then it would just fast forward us into a time where it's the norm. And those things that were like Oksana, what you were talking about, every time you go into a new venue, you're reinventing the wheel. What do? You don't do that. Can you do this? Who can I work with to figure this out? So it would push that innovation forward because everyone would be more aware of what needs to happen. And then therefore our industry would kind of maybe all be on the same page and it wouldn't be such a struggle that everything was different.
Chief Sustainability Officer, Christina, what would you do on day one?
I think, well, first doing a full scope emissions analysis of where we're at, because I don't know what I don't know. And I'm still a student of sustainability. I think maybe only a year and a half ago, I was just full-fledged into educating myself. So this is exciting. So I would say I need help to help me get in there and get what we need. But I agree with you that coming up with making it easy and accessible, maybe not easy, but accessible, having that checklist, having the tools, and for those that are educated and understand it, to provide that, as you mentioned with the hotels, having that example would be the first thing, and to maybe put that in place for each individual department and how we can make it happen.
Chief Sustainability Officer Oksana, what would you do?
I think that nowadays it's still not often when organizations have green teams and dedicated positions within their organizations for sustainability experts. So that's something that I would like to see because, as we've discussed, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of talent and creativity, and these people just need a little bit of a green light, a little bit of authority to be able to implement sustainability initiatives. And by creating green teams and these positions, organizations would also show their commitment to sustainability. And then you can also do so much more because you have like an army of people who are interested.
Very cool. Yeah. I always, as a CEO, I would always tell people, particularly up and coming, the next generation of leadership, if we just think of now the subject of sustainability and they had been immersed in it with me personally, I would say to them, in absence of my being there to answer a question for you, if you can stop and say, I thought, what would Glenn or so and so do in this particular position about making a decision on sustainability, I would always tell people that's all I can ask you to do. And if you say, hey, Glenn, I stopped and I thought about it, and I thought you would do it this way because of the training that you've given me, thumbs up, let's go for it. We're all going to make mistakes, but we're all going to learn. And there are always unintended consequences of everything, but that's how we're going to move the needle forward. All right, so for the audience now, we want to give them some case study, something that you found was somewhat, let's say, unique, surprising, but something that was done either you personally or something that you saw that you experienced on the sustainability side to give some people some ideas of as a takeaway of something they could now implement. Who would like to go first?
I'll go. I would say being on the trade show exhibit house side of things and getting that point of view. My favorite is the recycled fabric for your SEG structures, that solution being out there and that it can be accepted back and turned into something else or reused. That's pretty incredible, I think.
Sweet.
It's funny because I was going to use a similar example of just someone we worked with who took fabric and had a charity that sewed it into clothes for the homeless. And I thought that took them effort to find it. This production company had to find that, but otherwise it would have just been thrown away. And like, think of the impact that you made and how good they must feel because they did that with. So I thought that was a really good story. And then also just when you think of the exhibit floor, we did a measurement in the past where they switched the signage to all recyclable, and we got to see the numbers, like the change and the significance of it, along with the carpet. They switched it to recyclable. So actually seeing the drop in the emissions that went to landfill being so significant from tons and tons of materials no longer going there. And that's how it will be for years forward. I was like, okay, this is good work. Like, we're making a difference.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Oksana?
Yeah, so I'll give an example from more of a conference side instead of an exhibition because I haven't organized an exhibition in a while. But recently, last year, I came across a super cool system. I believe it's called Winnow, which uses AI. And I think AI is going to be used at events for things like that more often. But this system uses AI in the back kitchen to document all the food waste that comes from your event. And what's neat about this is that it documents different types of food waste. So whatever was delivered but maybe got burnt or couldn't be used when cooking an item. So it collects that information for you. Then whatever was put out on the plate and not eaten, that too. And then whatever's like the plate waste. And then it categorizes, it takes pictures of whatever goes into the bin. It of course weighs the food waste, and it then tells you if how much like meat or fruit or whatever else food you have wasted. And it really helps you to see like the real imprint and the real like waste of your food, so that you can have a more informed decision for future events, maybe reducing certain types of food to be more sustainable. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. As I say, we started talking about next generation of leaders. I think this events industry is going to have a positive future because of the three of you and others that are like-minded folk. So I appreciate your time today. And I look forward to us getting together again and tackling another issue of what's happening in our industry with respect to sustainability. So thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Glenn.
you.